shield broke. They went sprawling, and the cold exploded in. Nita shut her eyes in terror. That was all that saved them from freezing over on the spot. She recited the spell carefully in her mind and didn't breathe, didn't move, though her ears roared and she could feel the prickle in her skin caused by capillaries popping. 4 more words. 2 more. 1. Air again, but little warmth. Nita took a breath. It stabbed her nose and mouth like knives. She opened her eyes and tried to see. Her vision was blurred. Shock, perhaps. She didn't think her corneas had had time to freeze. Beside her, she faintly heard Kit move among the shattered bits of the poor, molten, refrozen, broken surface. "I changed my mind," he muttered. "Instead of being dead, can I just throw up some more?" "Oh, no," said the lone one from somewhere nearby. "No, indeed. You have laid hands upon my person. No one does that and lives to boast of it. Though you'll live a while yet, indeed you shall. I shan't let you go quickly, unlike your mouthy friend." Nita blinked and looked around her, then saw an explosion of scarlet and blue feathers lying among the broken rubble, red wetness already frozen solid, frosted over. Her insides seized. "I was always counting on someone to come and get us out of this. Peach or somebody. We've been lucky that way before. But not this time." She got to her hands and knees, the tears running down her face with the pain of bruises and the worse pain of fear inside. "Not this time. I guess the luck couldn't hold." There were hands on her. "It's not fair," she thought. "When you give everything you've got, it's supposed to turn out okay in the end." The hands pulled at her. Her eyes went back to the poor pile of feathers sticking up in the rocks. She didn't even have a chance to do anything brave before she went. It's not fair. "Neats, come on." "Yes," mocked the other voice, the cruel one. "Come on, Neats. One more time. For my amusement." She crouched, wobbling, staring at the bits of bright scarlet scattered all over the pale plain. "Kit," she said softly, "what are we going to tell Tom?" "Never mind that now. Neats, snap out of it. Think of Belfast." She thought of Belfast, and dogs in the backs of cars. She thought of rocket fire in Beirut, and the silence of Chernobyl. Plowed rainforests in Brazil, and the parched places in Africa, and all the street corners in America where people were selling crack, and other corners where people begged or lay hungry on steam vents in the shadow of windows full of gems. She thought of needless fear, and pain, and rage, and prolonged and terrified death. And she thought of ending all of these forever. Not right this minute, perhaps, but sooner or later. Somehow or other, everything that happened on this planet was supposed to contribute to that ending, whether she survived it or not. Slowly, Nita dragged herself to her feet and leaned on Kit without worrying who would think what about it. "What have you got?" she said. "Not a thing. I couldn't do enough of a spell to butter my bread. But damned if I'm going out lying on the ground." "Same here." She sniffled. The tears would not seem to stop. Very unheroic, she felt, with her nose running and her knees made of rubber. Almost it was funny. Almost she could have laughed at it. But there was no time for that now, with that dark regard trained on them like the end of everything, that dark shape moving slowly toward them, smiling. "Kit," she said, "it's been the best." "See you in time, Heart," he said. And another voice spoke, an unfamiliar one. What was it? "Touch them," it said, "and you're dead meat." Dairine scrabbled to her knees, looking across the broken waste at her sister and at the tears on Nita's face as she and Kit stood there holding each other up. Until now, she would have shrugged and turned her thoughts to something else. But now, memory was alive in Dayreen as it had never been before, and she saw in utter clarity that first time so long ago and heard herself make that decision. The way to keep from getting hurt is to know things. The resolve had only worked sometimes before, but now she knew things in a way no one ever had, and she was going to stop the hurting once and for all. Beside her, Gygo and some of the other mobiles stirred to help her up. She stood, using one of the big, heavy labor mobiles to lean against after she hauled herself back to her feet. Yards away stood a towering figure, man-like in outline, but 3 times any man's height, and as utterly dark as the vastness between the stars. The lone one turned to gaze at her, that dark regard astonished. "You again?" it said. "I see I will have to do away with you more quickly than these 2. You're getting to be a nuisance." Dayreen grinned, a predatory look that had made more than one kid decide not to bother her on the playground or in a poker game. "Do your worst, you poor turkey," she said. She felt its mind working, readying a bolt like the one that had crumpled Nita's shields, but many times worse. A killing blow that would cause a long lifetime's worth of pain before it snuffed life out. Must still be some connection to it through the motherboard, Dayreen thought. I wonder where, unless the presence of entropy in the board is enough. Wherever entropy is, it is. Oh well. She turned her mind to hunting a spell to stop the bolt. A millisecond later, she had it. She did not need to look in the manual. She was the manual now. As if in slow motion, she watched the bolt head for her, invisible though it was. Effortlessly, Dayreen struck it away from her and back at the sender, like a batter hitting a nasty ground ball straight back into the pitcher's gut. The lone one didn't react physically. The blow was too small to affect it, but its darkness grew terrible. "You think you can match power with me?" it said softly, turning away from Nita and Kit. Dayreen laughed. "Think so? I can wring you out and hang you up to dry. Come on, you poor fool. Take your best shot." It raised up a wash of power that would fall on the planet's surface and melt every one of the mobiles to magma. Dayreen saw it coming, found the spell she needed, caught the incoming tide of death, and threw it off to one side, where a large area of the plane began to bubble and seethe. "Naughty, naughty," Dayreen said. "Let my buddies be." The lone one grew even larger, its shape becoming less human, more shadowed, its darkness a bottomless pit of hate. It looked up into the darkness. "Insolence," it said, "I will never tolerate. I may not be able to touch you, but I will level your planet. You cannot stay awake to guard it from me forever. One night the sirens will start, and the next morning only mushroom clouds will grow on Earth any more. It will not take much doing." "It wouldn't if I ever intended to let you off this planet," Dayreen said, quite calmly. "I'm in the motherboard as much as it's in me. The mobiles know all the wizardry there is to know, and even if my human brain starts to lose it eventually, they won't. Get used to this place. You're not leaving." "Bets?" said the huge, shadowy form, growing huger. Its cold eyes glanced up into the darkness. High up, the red sun began to waver and pucker. "A significant amount of this planet's energy," said the lone one, "comes from solar power, more than from geothermal. Much of this plane is solar cell, surely you noticed. That black hole's orbit can be changed without too much effort. It need no longer transit the star. It can be permanently placed in front of it." The sun's disk puckered in on itself, dwindled, died away completely. The mobiles gazed up in horror. "Oh, they have a little power stored," Dayreen said. "Enough to stop that kind of blackmail." She took a breath. This was going to take some power, but she had that to spare at the moment. The whole motherboard behind her, all the mobiles, all their intent turned toward giving her whatever she needed. The spell was intricate, but the natural laws being worked with were simple enough. Gravity was one of the easiest of all laws to rewrite for brief periods. Dayreen reached out without moving, spoke the words that grasped the forces and spun them together, then flung them outward. The net found the shape destined for it, the tiny dark mass around which space bent so awry. The mass was snagged into the net, caught. Dayreen described the direction she wanted it to go in, turned the spell loose. The whole business had taken 16 milliseconds. The tiny black hole slung into the red sun, which immediately flared up in outrage. None of this was visible, nor would it be for some minutes, until the light reached the planet from the star, but Dayreen felt it happen, and so did the lone one. "So much for that," Dayreen said. "Now you and I are going to talk." At the same time, she was thinking furiously about something else that nagged at her, as if it were important. How was it she was able to hear what was going on in its head? And she was distracted, for here came something else, a wave of power so awful that she shrank from it, even though it wasn't directed at her or anything on the planet's surface. All those millions of miles away, she felt the star go dead. Star Snuffer. She knew the lone power was called by that name as well. "I am through playing," it said. "If it is not you who pay the price, elsewhere others will. Think on it." It looked upward. There was hardly anything human about it any more, only a great, tall darkness, like a tree made of night, just awful watchfulness, and a cold to freeze the heart. Dayreen looked up, too. She felt darkness eating at the fringes of the risen galaxy. "Here are your choices," said the lone power out of its darkness, as Dayreen and Nita and Kit watched in horror. "Keep on defying me, and watch me kill and kill as the price of your defiance. The blood of all these billions of entities will be on your souls forever. Or give yourselves up to me." "No way," Nita said. "You're the one doing the killing. We'd do worse by the universe if we gave up than if we kept on fighting you." Dayreen stood silent, refusing to be rattled, thinking. There has to be a way to get it to stop this. I can't fight it forever. At least I don't want to. And how can I hear it? The connection through Logo. She glanced over among the mobiles, but Logo lay on its side, empty-minded. No, it has to be... She stopped as the answer rushed into her mind from the manual. "Where entropy is," it said, "there its creator also is, either directly or indirectly." "I'm a product of this universe after all," she had said to the mobiles. "It's in me, too." Her heart turned over inside her as she came to know her enemy. Not a Darth Vader striding in with a blood-burning lightsaber, not something outside to battle and cast down, but something inside herself, where it had always been, hiding, growing, waiting until the darkness was complete and its own darkness not noticeable anymore. Her enemy was wearing her clothes and her heart, and there was only one way to get rid of it. She was terrified. Yet this was the great thing, the thing that mattered, the thing that would save everybody, from Kit and Nita to the least little grain of dust in space and the tiniest germ on Earth. This was what the spell had brought her here to do. She would pen all of the lone power up inside herself, not just the treacherous little splinter of it that was her own, pen it up inside a mind that was large enough to hold it all. and then she would die.